Welcome back, everyone. It's here. And today I've got some r/BestOf for you all. As per usual, I'll be reading you the posts, giving you my opinions, and I hope you do the same down in the comments below. And without further ado, let's jump right into it. Posted by Direct Caterpillar 77, and their tagline is, Satan is not a pogo stick. The original OP is Throwaway Slept on the Couch. Posted to r/relationships on January 18th, 2016. My 22 female, boyfriend, 29 male, of 19 months is furious because my brother, 24 male, spent the night after going out clubbing with me. He's angry that I let another man stay over and I don't know how to react to the situation. So my brother and I live in different parts of our country and only really see each other once every few months. He was going to be in town from last Wednesday until Saturday evening, so we made plans to go clubbing Friday night with some friends of mine. We hung out and came home around 4, and I only have one bed in my apartment, so my brother crashed on my couch. We both woke up a few hours later, grabbed lunch, and went to the airport, and my brother headed back to where he lives. After that, he sent me a text when his flight got in safely, and that was it. Now, my boyfriend and I don't live together, but I stay at his place quite often, or he'll stay at mine. He usually works 2 weeks in, 2 weeks out, and he came home yesterday morning, so naturally, I was pretty excited to see him. I picked him up and we came back to my place. Afterward, while chatting, I mentioned that my brother spent the night at my place and he got kind of weird. I kind of prodded him to tell me what was up because for the life of me, I couldn't figure out what would cause him to go so quiet and sullen when just 5 minutes before we were having a flowing conversation. He told me it was nothing, so I left it, and then later, I asked him again because he was still in a bad mood. He said that he didn't like the idea of another man staying at my place, regardless of who it is, and that it will not be happening in the future. I got really confused here because it's my brother. Sleeping on the couch for one night after we hung out, it's not some stranger or hell, even a guy friend of ours, it's my brother. I laughed it off and said, "You can't be serious. You have to be joking." And he got really angry and left my place. Last night, I got an angry text saying that as his girlfriend, I have to respect his wishes. And while I get respecting what your significant other wants, compromise the works, isn't this ridiculous? I responded asking him why my brother sleeping on my couch was so bad, and he said it just was, and that a proper girlfriend doesn't let other men stay over alone with her, and that it's incredibly disrespectful to him. More confusion from me because, again, this isn't some dude I brought home, it's my brother. I tried talking to him after this, but I got a message saying, "We'll talk when he's composed himself." What am I to do? I really love my boyfriend, but this is just confusing and I don't know how to react. Also, I should note, I've never had any other guys alone at my place. Literally only my boyfriend, apart from my brother, has ever been with me alone there. The only other time guys have been there have been if I have a small group get-together, and that is quite rare. Too long didn't read, brother out of town, slept on my couch after we went clubbing, boyfriend came home yesterday and got very angry when I told him about it. Relevant comments. This is how I internet comments. If your boyfriend is mad about your brother crashing on your couch after late night clubbing, he's got his priorities all wrong. I'd like to know why he's so upset over your brother staying. Another man, sure, that'd be understandable, but it's interesting he's angry about family staying in your apartment. OP responds, "I don't even know why. I've asked him that several times, and all he says is that he doesn't like me having other men over, and it's very disrespectful to him." This is how I internet responds, "Disrespectful to him, huh? Had he considered how disrespectful he is to you by trying to tell you that you can't have family at your own apartment? Personally, I'd be out of that relationship/situation. I'm not down with people trying to tell me who I can and cannot be around if they're family. Or there needs to be a conversation about what boundaries he's allowed to set and the expectations of him." Edit to the original post. Okay, so my boyfriend and I have been texting the past hour or so. He sent me a "hey," and I was kind of in a pissy mood after he brushed me off last night, so I simply replied with, "Are you ready to talk?" He replied, "Okay." And so I asked him what the deal was with my brother sleeping on the couch. He's not some random guy from a bar. He's not even a guy friend. He's more than that. He's my brother. I grew up with him. There is absolutely no reason for him to worry or freak out in that situation because it's my brother of all people. There is literally nothing threatening in that situation, not physically towards me or to our relationship. His response? I just am not comfortable with that. I know it's your brother, but I think there are boundaries that should be in place. Why didn't he get back to the friend's place he stayed at on Wednesday and Thursday? My response? You're not answering my question and just telling me what you told me last night. Also, my apartment was closer to the club than his friend's place. Him. We've been together for some time now, and I think that as a couple, it looks bad when you let other guys stay over, regardless of who they are to you. I would never do something to you like that, and I think it's only fair that you reciprocate that. It's hard to explain things because I know you can't see them from my perspective. Him continued. You shouldn't really need other guys so close with you. Why couldn't you just put your brother in a cab and send him on his way like we'd normally do with all our other friends? Anyway, I have a meeting now and I'll talk to you later. Enjoy your day, babe. Bye. Edit 2. Everyone, I don't even know how the hell to react right now. This is the first time he's ever acted like this. He's met my brother before and they've always gotten along well. Update, February 4th, 2016, 17 days later. So, against better judgment, I did not immediately break up with my boyfriend. I tried convincing myself it was a one-time thing. Maybe he was just having a rough patch, and I tried pushing it down. I did tell my brother what happened, and he replied saying he'd always thought my boyfriend and him were cool with each other at the very least. He then told me my boyfriend is being nuts, and if I need to crash for a few days, I could come on up to his end. So, the rest of the week remained tense with my boyfriend, but closer to the weekend, it was relaxed-ish. We went on a date, hung out with some friends at a bar together, and yet for the life of me, I couldn't figure out reasons for his outburst. So, on Sunday, I asked him again, now that you seem in a better mood, would it be so bad if I asked what was up last week? And once again, mood went from friendly and relaxed to Arctic. He simply asked me if I had to keep bringing up bullshit when we were doing okay again. I got pretty angry at him and told him to leave my apartment. Since Sunday, I've been stewing and just looking back at our relationship. Sure, I have my friends, but we hang out with them much less. The ones we do hang out with are more his friends and people that he's cool with being with. It was rough, but looking back on it, I started seeing controlling behavior from him that I'd never taken up on due to either just being head over heels and willing to compromise on everything, and by compromise, I mean roll over and give up. We talked last night and I gave him an ultimatum, something I never expected to give in any relationship. Either you sit and try to talk this out with me like a rational person, no bullshit answers and no dodging questions, or we break up. Instead of having a conversation, he broke down and started telling me I was the best thing he's ever had and that he has issues that he can't even begin to explain and that he doesn't want to lose me. Now, I'm sorry if this is the part that makes me seem like a bitch, but it wasn't the answer I wanted or deserved. Not when I'd been the one rolling over and giving him whatever throughout our entire relationship, so I told him that it was best if we didn't see each other anymore and that he should leave my apartment. He left and spent almost 2 hours just sitting in his car in front of my place before leaving when it was close to 12. So yeah, we broke up. I admit I feel more saddened than relieved, so I'm hoping I don't do something stupid like drunk dial him or call him over because I'm lonely or something like that. But yeah, we're not together anymore. It sucks, but it had to be done. Too long didn't read, we broke up after me realizing he'd been subtly controlling from early on and him not taking the chance I'd given him to talk things out. Relevant comments. Beer and crumpets. I don't think you were being a bitch, I think you opted out of being manipulated. He was trying to pull your strings and you didn't let him, which I think was a solid choice. Well done. Epic Hunter's comments. Right on the nose. He was going to tell OP what she wanted to hear so she'd stay with him, and he'd never actually change. So I want to give a quick tinfoil hat theory of mine, and this is a theory, not fact. I think the boyfriend spends too much time on the hub or other sites similar to that, and probably has a pretty warped view on sibling relationships. So in his mind, any guy is a threat to him. Any guy could sleep with his girlfriend. Which would also explain why he stated along the lines of, he has issues that he can't even begin to explain and that he doesn't want to lose me. Because that is a conversation that, if I'm right on my theory, if he were to have with his girlfriend, would go something along the lines of, I don't want your brother staying over because I'm afraid you'll sleep with him. Like, can you imagine how she'd react to that? I also do want to talk about something that's very important, which did kind of resonate with me quite a bit when reading it, was when OP mentioned that she noticed that the friends they were hanging out with were no longer hers, but more of his. That's something that I went through. I had a relationship where midway through I realized, holy shit, I don't have any friends anymore. All of them were cast aside and shut down, and I was made to believe that they were evil. This partner even went out of their way for friends that I had that were childhood friends. When they visited, when I wasn't around, would spend hours shit-talking me to them. Thank God they saw right through it though. But seriously, any friend that I had that they didn't like were pushed aside and I wasn't allowed to hang out with anymore because they were evil and vindictive and trying to hurt us. Any friend that I had that they did like, they tried to take away from me. And it had reached a point where I was so isolated that when I went to start doing online D&D just to have social interaction, I was accused of cheating on them because they heard me talking to someone with my door closed. So yeah, if you ever notice that your friend circle is slowly shrinking and you're kind of in a weird boat where outside of your relationship, you don't have any of your original friends anymore, that's a massive red flag, and please definitely start keeping an eye out for other sides of controlling behavior or abuse. This post was collected by Chromex Boy, and their tagline is, "She made the produce wildly uncomfortable." Original OP is "Don't call me Baldy." Originally posted to r/AmITheAsshole on January 28, 2022. Am I the asshole for pressing charges on a former friend for shaving my head in my sleep? For context, a relative of what used to be a close friend of mine, whom we'll call Gary for the story, contracted cancer. I, mid-20s male, was sympathetic and even contributed $100 to a donation pool for their treatment. But Gary came to me one day and took his hat off to reveal a freshly shaven head. He told me that everyone in his family were doing it in support of his relative, and so were a lot of our mutual friends. Then he asked me that I get on the bandwagon. I told him I didn't want to shave my head because I like my hair. My hair is black, regularly combed, and well styled. He said I could just get a wig or something and had actually brought his shaver kit. He was unboxing it when I told him this was not happening. I don't even really know his relative that he's doing this for, so I'm not doing it. End of discussion. He called me an asshole and left angry. We didn't speak for a week. Then, last Saturday, I got invited to a party at another close friend's house. There, I found out that Gary had tried the same thing on several other friends, and only a couple of them actually did shave their heads. Gary wasn't at the party, so I had a blast hanging out, playing video games, and listening to rock music. But I had way too much to drink and couldn't drive home, so they said I could just sleep upstairs. I passed out on a bed and it was a blissful sleep, till I was shaken awake by another friend who told me Gary had showed up late and they caught him shaving my head while I was passed out. I saw what I looked like in a mirror and I wanted to scream like I was in a horror movie. Gary even shaved off one of my eyebrows. Gary was still there and acting proud of himself, saying, "Now you're gonna have to shave off the rest, just like me, LOL." I was furious and called the cops. When they got there, Gary fully admitted to what he had done to me and even said he was justified. The police didn't seem to think so, as this is classified as a form of assault. They asked me if I wanted to press charges, and the first words out of my mouth were, "Hell yes!" Gary cussed me out while they took him away in cuffs. I tried getting my hair restyled into something presentable, but there was no saving it, and now I'm bald too. Now a bunch of Gary's family are telling me to drop the charges because Gary was off his meds and didn't mean to do it. I was like, what the fuck? Because I never knew he was on meds, but I still refuse to drop the charges. It'll take months to grow my hair back the way it was, but all of the calls and messages from Gary's relatives are starting to get to me. Just about everyone else in our friend group has cut Gary out though, and say that I'm doing the right thing by not dropping the charges. So now I'm divided. Am I the asshole for pressing charges on a former friend for shaving my head in my sleep? Edit, I want to make something clear here. So many people have said things like, dude, it's just hair. But would they all be saying that if I wasn't a man? What if I was some girl that had hair that took years to grow? Would they be saying the same thing? Sure, hair grows back, but it takes time. If it was something that grew back fast, people would be less inclined to care. But it's not fast, it takes months. And for some who had long hair, years. That's a lot of time wasted growing. And I don't plan on pushing for Gary to go to prison, but I don't plan to drop the charges either. His family already bailed him out, and while I didn't know he was on meds, I knew he had quite the temper, and even an entitled attitude at times. One example being a lunch where he wanted us all to combine the check and split it evenly. He got the most expensive thing on the menu. I got a cheeseburger. When we all said no, Gary went off on us for not being good friends. He's always been an ass when he doesn't get his way, and I've known him for like 3 years. This incident was the last straw for not just me, but a lot of other mutual friends. As for the charges, I don't want to send Gary to prison, but I would like him to get some therapy and community service. With the way Gary was acting around me in the past and what he did to me, I actually wonder how long before he got more violent. I've seen and heard of him getting in fights for less. Edit 2, I've gotten many comments from people saying, "You're the asshole, he has cancer." If you actually read what I posted, Gary is not the one with cancer. A relative of his, I don't know, does. And no, I don't know what kind of cancer. Gary didn't elaborate. He wanted me to shave my head for this person, and when I refused, he left in a tantrum, then shaved my head while I was passed out drunk at a party. Relevant comments. Ghostis hostess. But did you shave the other eyebrow to even out the growth? OP responds, "Unfortunately, yeah, I had to." No idea why I'm here, commented. Not the asshole. Being off meds may be a reason, but it's never an excuse, and that was definitely assault. In fact, if you haven't already told the police, make sure they know that Gary previously asked you to get on the bandwagon, said he'd shave it for you while unpacking his equipment. You refused and he verbally assaulted you. He knew you didn't and wouldn't consent, but did it anyway while you were unconscious. Block Gary and his relatives from everything. Try not to get upset when you can't avoid a mirror. And hope your hair grows back better than before. Smiley face. OP responds, "The police know every detail about Gary that I've given here, save for his family harassing me, which I intend to tell the police about ASAP." Scotty Buttons comments, "Not the asshole. Lucky for you, the only difference between a bad haircut and a good one is a couple weeks. Maybe a couple months for you. Sorry, bud." OP responds, "It'll be a couple of months, sadly. It'll probably take 5 months to get my hair back to looking as good as it was." OP commenting in regards to if his other friends knew about this. "My friends all want nothing to do with Gary anymore. They didn't egg him on. They had no idea he was gonna do what he did." Lumpy Passenger 1300 comments, "Actually, if you're going to talk to the DA, they may be able to offer him a plea where he needs to stay on meds / go in treatment." Not the asshole. OP responds, "I already figured not much was going to happen since I wasn't harmed other than my hair. Whatever deal he takes in court, if he gets one, won't really matter to me. What does matter to me is that this due process makes him realize just how badly he screwed up. Meds or no meds." OP in regards to if Gary brought his own shaving kit. "He used some stuff that was in the bathroom next door to the room I was sleeping in. He didn't bring his own, but I can see why you'd think that. It's far from the first time I've passed out at a friend's house, and Gary knew that. In fact, he was probably waiting for it. If anything, this has been a wake-up call to get my drinking under control." The Hammer and Sizzle. Info. How did he get into the house? You're 100% not the asshole and should press charges, but who let him into that house? It was someone else's place, and I'm assuming he either came in super late or early in the morning. The reason I'm asking is that in addition to Gary, someone let him into the house, and I would be interested to know the reasoning. OP responds, "Gary got in because they let him in. He figured his tangent about hair was over. He tried to convince a bunch of them to shave their heads like he did to me, and none of the people there let him do it. My guess is he singled me out because I was passed out. If not me, it could have been anyone else there if they'd passed out drunk instead." Kitchen Zebra 5403. "See, the difference between me and you is I'd beat the hell out of Gary, and I'd be going to jail for assault." OP responds, "Fighting isn't in my nature. I don't even usually get angry all that much, but if Gary had attacked me, I'd like to think my friends likely would have ganged up and beaten the crap out of him, but I really don't know." OP on the evidence the police gathered. "The police got a couple of pictures of my head and the trimmer Gary used on me, but I didn't want any more photos of what I looked like to show up, so I had the rest of my head shaved the next day." Deleted commenter. In your country, what are the consequences of having charges pressed against you? I've heard that in some corners of the world, people can find it very hard to get jobs after getting jail time. Which I acknowledge you don't want, but I suppose it's a possibility. Which tends to cause a lot of downward spiral that ends up disproportionately more punitive than the original conviction. It sounds like you want Gary to change his ways. Would the result of pressing charges have that outcome? Not the asshole, by the way. OP responds, honestly, it's a toss-up from what I know, but I hope that if I push for just the minimum and only get him community service and therapy, then perhaps his record won't be affected too harshly, but I can't say for sure. OP on how Gary got into the friend group. Gary isn't a relative of anyone I know. He was the neighbor of a friend who wormed his way into my friend circle. He seemed likable at first, but once he seemed well established, he started letting his real self out bit by bit. A lot of us were already fed up with him. Verdict, not the asshole. Update post, June 9th, 2023, 1 year later. Posted to r/entitled people. A friend of mine just showed me a video yesterday in which my old post had been read. Honestly, I'd nearly forgotten about it since I was only there to ask if I was the asshole or not. And since I don't want to go through the pain of trying to do an update on Am I the Asshole, I thought I'd just do it here, since entitled spells out Gary pretty well. Other than the shaving incident, he tried to get us to partially pay for his food multiple times by combining the checks and dividing it equally, when he always got the most expensive thing on the menu. And even once pulled the, "Man, I forgot my wallet" bit. He was described as neckbeard by multiple people, including women he flirted with. He tried to get a married neighbor woman that was older than him to have an affair with her, and then later egged her apartment door when she refused. That one I only learned about a couple months after my original post, and no, Gary never saw consequences for doing that. I also learned he stole several video games and DVDs from friends, mooched food and drink out of their fridges, and even went through a period as a squatter for 2 months by refusing to leave a house he'd been let into by a former tenant. And the landlord actually paid him to leave. Gary's also an extreme hypocrite that contradicted himself more than a corrupt politician. For example, one minute he'd be anti-vax, the next he'd be complaining about other people who weren't getting the C19 vaccine. Pretty sure he never got it too. I can't believe I ever had any sympathy for this man. To recap, someone a former friend of mine named Gary is related to got cancer, and Gary went around trying to get our friend group to all shave their heads. He only got a couple of them to agree, and even brought his shaving kit to my apartment because he just assumed I'd join as well, and was already unboxing it before I got the chance to say anything. I told him the shaving was not happening. Well, he decided to make an example out of me, and waited till I was good and passed out from drinking at a friend's party. I was so dead to the world that I had to be shaken awake by a friend after Gary got caught shaving my head. He took off one of my eyebrows and messed up my hair beyond shaving. And he was laughing his butt off over having done it. So yes, the rest had to come off. I ended up pressing charges on Gary for assault and found out he's been on meds for a mental disorder for years, and he'd stopped taking the meds, which is one of the reasons he was so loopy. But his tune changed pretty quick when police arrested him since what he'd done qualifies as assault. Gary's family harassed me and tried to make me drop the charges. I not only didn't drop the charges, but I reported the harassment to police. One problem is, it didn't bloody stop. In fact, it got worse, mainly from Gary's mother, whom I can see where Gary got his charming personality from. She showed up to my apartment a couple of weeks after the shaving incident to scream at me that I knew nothing about what they were going through. And a little hair wasn't a big deal. I told her my hair was a big deal to me, and what Gary did was inexcusable. Well, that earned me a slap on the face, followed by a swift kick to the nuts, followed by a few more kicks to my body after I went down. It was all recorded by a camera that I had watching the front door. Landlord wouldn't let me put in a Ring doorbell cam. One of my neighbors saw her and screamed at her that they'd be calling the police. Gary's mom ran, and I ended up going to the hospital with minor injuries, mostly just bruises, a black eye, and a sore groin. Gary's mother got arrested, and I filed a lawsuit against her for attacking me. I saw her in court twice, for both her assault on me and the lawsuit I filed for her assault. This woman had taken several self-defense classes over the years, so she knew how to fight. That had the judge consider her a trained individual, and she was sentenced to 6 months in jail, given 2 years probation, in order to pay my medical bills. She actually cried to the judge about the money, but he wasn't having it. It took some time to see her in court again for my lawsuit against her, as she was out of jail by then. I was awarded $10,000 for the harassment, emotional damages, and lost work hours, and she had to pay all court and lawyer fees, which she cried about again because she didn't want to pay anything to the man who'd ruined her and her son's lives. But she had the money for both court cases because she had no problem paying. But around that time, I heard Gary's relative with cancer passed away. I don't know any details, just that they passed on. I admit that was sad, but I never knew this person. But Gary made their condition his hill to die on when he tried to make an example out of me. Gary got some probation and community service for what he did to my hair, and he cut contact with our entire friend group and eventually moved away. Where to? I don't know. I don't care either. As for my hair, well, it grew back just fine. Took nearly half a year to get it back to how it was. My boss had me put out of sight for a while, and I was wearing a hat everywhere for at least a month. I did take that $10K I got in the lawsuit and combined it with my savings for a down payment on a house, so I've since moved into a much nicer abode. I also have a girlfriend now that's living with me. It was a bit soon for her to move in, but there were extenuating circumstances. We're making it work though, and I'm happy. More relevant comments. Mountain Dream. Here's the thing, as a man, you are reluctant to fight back against a woman, but she's no lady either. Don't ever just let someone slap and kick you because you refuse to fight back. Also, did the mother shave her head? OP responds, no, she didn't shave her head, unless she had a wig on, which I doubt. I don't know how many people in Gary's family did shave their heads, because his mother was one of his only relatives I saw in person since the shaving incident. Otherwise, all the harassment was online and over the phone. And yes, I was reluctant to strike back, but that old woman was faster than she looked, and the shooting pain from being kicked in the nuts is something I never want to feel again. I am really happy this post kind of covered upon something that I've spoken about previously, where you can use mental health and problems that you have with ADHD or autism or, other diagnosed conditions as an explanation, but not as an excuse. And I've seen posts that frustrate the hell out of me where people blame their ADHD for why something happened or didn't happen, and they believe they should get a blanket excuse for it, or, it should just excuse that action or behavior. And the problem is that because of how many people do that, the posts where someone states like, because of my ADHD, I made this fuck up. Where they're taking accountability for it, they're just explaining that ADHD is why they made the fuck up, not trying to excuse the fuck up. People will then jump on them and trying to claim that they're trying to use ADHD as an excuse, when really it's an explanation. Now, I don't know how many people with autism or ADHD grew up with something similar, but when I was growing up and I would try to explain my actions, I would often be told, I don't want to hear excuses, when I was just trying to explain the circumstances of how something occurred, so that way it was at least understandable how we ended up in this position. But the problem is that explanations can oftentimes sound like you're trying to excuse your behavior and not trying to state, here's why I did this, I still fucked up, but I just want you to understand this wasn't malicious. I'd be curious how many people grew up with that same issue that I had, but that's besides the point. My point being here is that just because you are off your meds, that does not blanket excuse your behavior. I mean, hell, just yesterday we had a post where I didn't properly phrase my tangent because these are done off the cuff and, sometimes the wording gets flipped around a bit or, fucked up. Some people, because of my wording, were under the impression that I was trying to state that if a parent has a depressive episode, that should excuse their behavior or any neglect they might give the child. But what I was trying to state, and this is within context of yesterday's episode, that if a parent was neglectful towards their child because of mental health reasons, but they got better and they were trying to rebuild the connection with their child and trying to apologize and do everything they could to be a better parent, even if they were late to being that, I was simply stating that I don't think I could agree with OP's harsh reaction to not even give them a chance. And because I fucked up with the wording, I made it sound like it's inexcusable not to forgive them. Which, after re-listening to my audio take, I definitely 100% can see how people could come to that interpretation. So thank you to everyone who, gently called me out on that and made me aware of what my take sounded like, which was nowhere even close to being my intention. And were respectful with the way they approached it, and just explained their grievances with the way that my words came across. But Long story short, Gary being off his meds isn't an excuse for the behavior that he did. He still committed assault, and yes, hair does grow back, but at the same time, you're having your appearance disfigured. And like, it's not even just the hair, it's the eyebrows too. Like, imagine waking up and finding out your roommate decided to shave off one of your eyebrows and half your head. You'd be pretty fucking pissed. Granted, I don't think anyone in my audience would actually end up siding with Gary in this instance, so I'm not too worried about that. But I'm kind of more speaking on the Reddit comments that were like calling OP the asshole here because it was for Gary's cancer when they didn't read the goddamn post. Which isn't surprising because a lot of Reddit commenters will just read the title and make a comment and call it good. Hey, welcome to the outro. Don't forget this whole thing is basically brought to you by GamerSupps. If you like caffeine, then I can't recommend GamerSupps enough. Use code Oz at checkout to support the channel. And I do actually use this product. It's replaced all other sources of caffeine for me because I feel good. It doesn't have any of that extra stuff that a pre-workout blend might have. It's with a couple of the extra things to make it so you don't crash as hard. It's good. I like it. Personally, if you really want a good flavor, try the Soda Pressing Pear or even the Dragon Fruit Punch. Those two are my personal favorites right now.